Hello, everybody. I got all dressed up for you today. I look like a Christmas package. I don't know if we're in Yule. I think it's too early for us to start counting down Yule. It is Sunday, December 10th. I'm doing a lot of growing. I hope you are too. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sabrina. I am a medium and a shamanic witch. Oh, Jade wants to hop up here. Come here. Come here. Do you want to jump up? Here, let me pick you up. Come here. I can pick you up. Oh, there we go. Welcome to the Jade and Sabrina show. There you go, Jade. Okay? Are you happy now? Okay. All right, there you go. I wanted to hop on here quickly tonight because the cards will tell. They've been prompting me to talk about things. And as I recently shared with you a little spell you could do with 2 tarot cards, I'm seeing where what I thought might have been the message coming through wasn't. And I just never know until I go to sleep or I'm sitting on the sofa, right? And I'm allowing my mind to be open. I wanted to talk about, well, obviously, the title is Falling in Love and Other Fairy Tales. And unfortunately, these are the types of things that I don't know where or how it came about, except that there has been a very long-running theme of men seeking to have women as helpmates, and we end up becoming much more like subordinates. Now, years ago, of course, women had to depend on men, not only for protection, but for food. They were the hunterers, the women were the gatherers. And that can be a very good, harmonious relationship. But wasn't necessarily based on what are your interests, what are your goals. It was based on survival. And so even though there's a lot of progress that's been made, there's been a lot more challenges, I think, for women especially, and men having to get used to the fact that, you know, it's okay for a woman to be more independent. A lot of men don't want their wives to really be totally dependent upon them. Thank goodness. I have been led to remember a book that I was led to purchase by my spirit guide years ago, okay? The Cinderella Complex. Now, after that, I'd say about 8 years later, I got Patty Stanger's book, How to Become Your Own Matchmaker. And there's a lot of good things in there about the different types of men, the different types of women, and how to make a list of things that you're looking for. What is negotiable, what is a deal breaker. It's just a guideline to help you when you go to look for your next mate. I carried those books with me. And for some reason, after I sold my mobile home, my daughter had moved away, I couldn't find them. From time to time, she would take things, and if she took the Cinderella Complex and How to Become Your Own Matchmaker, my job is done. She decided, she had seen what I went through, she watched me study, she watched me learn, she watched me grow, and she wanted to read what those books were about. What they are about is something that I've mentioned recently, and that is women can be, in our society and in other societies as well, brainwashed or conditioned to be subservient, to be nothing more than housemaids and baby machines, okay? These are very, very dominating cultures that I am not really that familiar with. I'm glad I'm not in it. But it is unfortunately the nature of men to be very, very domineering and dominating, and women also very nurturing. But the problem is when a woman seeks to be taken care of. Now, bless her heart, okay, I've talked about my mother, I've talked about my ex exhibiting a lot of narcissistic traits. I do believe that he was. Um, and codependency was not an alcoholic or a drug user, but there was a lot of oppression, a lot of cultural ideas about what a woman should do and be. And especially in his culture where there's no such thing as going to the movies or, money for going roller skating or taking summer vacations. It didn't exist. All right, so we had the cultural differences there. Plus, he was very macho, okay? He was very macho. Now, bravado is a mask for insecurity. Write that down. I'm still working on my Patreon. I've got a couple of other things going on, guys. I'm still working on becoming stronger, okay, as a woman. I've gotten into this place where I've upgraded my lifestyle, but it's been a big adjustment for me, especially since the you-know-what in 2020. Oh, and I lost my job and had to live off my savings. And so I'm starting over. Once you get accustomed to receiving something, it's very hard to give it up. And so to be honest with you, what I've done is just stock up on supplies, and I'm committed to actually working more because I figure if I have to pay $200 a month on a car repair bill, on a car that's really old and got more problems, I might as well go and get a younger car and make a car payment. And if it's going to be a Camry, then, it's still going to be really good. That's life, right? So, from time to time we have coals thrown into the fire, and we have to put forth more effort. For some reason, a strong, independent woman can be very intimidating to a man. Oh, she doesn't need me. Now, that's a codependent personality trait. It's simply not true. Now, after I had my dream journey and I met my spirit guide, and we were getting to know one another, and I met him in a guided meditation when I was studying hypnotherapy, and then after that I had another vision of him in black and white, and I met with an artist. It's a long story, but in any event, I came across this picture in the library. This was a real man who had lived, and he was guiding me. He was helping me from the other side. And we just had I had one of the most incredible, lengthy conversations I've ever had with him. I tried to pull it out down here. My bookshelf started to just collapse. So I'm just going to have to pull it out and read it to you later. But at one point, he referenced to me in these conversations we were having for several days. Do you remember in the Cinderella complex? And I said, yes. So he was prompting my memory. He said that I led you to. So he led me to that book. This is a book that was written by Colette Downing, I think was her name, 40 years ago. And women are still struggling with independence and being perceived as not needing a man. All right, so it's crippled men as well. They're feeling not needed. And this is a trick, this is a lie that is played on our minds that makes us feel she's just not going to take care of me if I'm sick. Well, she might not be the nurse type. You got to figure that out. But yeah, this book goes into so many things that were just so similar to what I was going through. This woman is capable of seeing inner parts. She's very psychic, very insightful. I do believe that she was highly psychic and probably a high priestess in a previous life and had come here to deliver this message that we're still struggling with. Now, gaining independence is not easy for women in this country. It depends on what you do, okay? But falling in love with someone, I've come to realize, is just a fantasy, as far as you don't really fall in love with someone. And as I recently had an experience where I was feeling things that seemed strange to me for somebody that I didn't know. It wasn't just a mere curiosity. It was much deeper than that. And I hate to say, this is possible for people to do. If you do not practice cleansing yourself and putting up some type of a psychic shield. I was so busy with my mundane life that I had stopped practicing some of my psychic habits at night. And so I had been affected, and I remember having enough common sense to know this doesn't make sense. Why would you be right now having these thoughts and these feelings about someone that you really haven't gotten to know? Now, I'm prophetic, so that could be something that's going to happen in the near future. I don't know. But there was one other incident where I felt I had this person in my residence, and they were in my bedroom, and I felt completely invaded. They had purchased 1 week to sleep in my sleeping room, and I was horrified. Number one, that told me I really don't want a rich man to take care of me and pay all the bills. I still need to work, be a productive member of society, and start saving money in a retirement account. There's not enough millionaires to go around. Every woman needs to have something of her own. My mother used to say, God bless the child that has their own. So you work a little bit and you start saving somewhere, investing somewhere, so that you have money in your old age. If your husband can't provide that for you, do something to provide it for yourself. But, men that are sexist, that expect a woman to be like a Stepford wife or a Betty Crocker, not even Martha Stewart is a Betty Crocker. She's a businesswoman. She's turned domesticity into a business. Falling in love with another person would have to be, well, love is a feeling we feel in ourselves, right? It's a feeling we generate within ourselves when someone says, I'm so grateful for you, and we feel that, and then we give it back. Love isn't love until you give it away. This takes time. How can you feel that if you don't know someone? Men have a tendency to fall in love through their eyes. It's a flaw we have, okay? The people that made us, created us to do nothing but procreate and be workers in the field. I'm convinced. I've said this before. Procreate, make more kids, die when you're 45, right? And the kids grow up, and that's all they do, is the slave labor for the elites. However, I think it might have been one of the brothers Enki who said, no, let's give them some intellect so they can use it and help themselves and even help us at the same time. That's my theory. But yeah, so that's the challenge, right? You go to try to get to know that female that you're attracted to, women as well, vice versa. And if you develop a rapport, fine, but you still, again, you need to know red flags. What are you doing that might be causing you to get into a relationship with someone because you're seeking security, you're seeking financial security, emotional security, Okay, that can only be provided by you. That is what I actually came to learn. And this is how and why recently um, I've come to this conclusion that I have grown and I have healed, or I wouldn't have been able to recognize this and step away from doing anything that could lead me to feel um, vulnerable. If this could happen to me, guys, it could happen to anyone. You know, when we're alone or we're isolated, we're vulnerable, we're not practicing our psychic protection at night, we're not doing enough cleansings, maybe we're not looking at the tarot enough to communicate with our spirit guides on a regular basis, we can become weak. Our shield becomes weak and vulnerable. And you can truly feel misled. It's like having a dream where you all of a sudden, right, feel like you're just having these incredible amorous feelings towards someone that you already know, but all of a sudden, you know, you're having these feelings. And I knew someone who said to me, a female said this to me one day, for he hadn't done anything to her, but she said that he asked her, "Why are you acting this way?" She said, "I had a dream." Now, who knows why she had that dream? He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. But yeah, you know, this can be very, very disconcerting, very, very misleading. Love is a drug, guys. Love is a drug. And it is meant for us to be clouded in our mind and our judgment. Because as I've said, procreation only cares about procreating. That's what we were designed for. That's the strongest force on the planet. And this is where our challenge is, to use discernment and find someone and get to know someone and spend time getting to know them and seek to understand them, and also recognize red flags and learn some terms. Now, in my marriage, I had empathy, but I was also a little codependent. I was stepping into my adult ego state, but I was probably still fluctuating from childhood to adulthood because of my alcoholic mother and the abuse that she suffered as a child. So she had some behaviors that were not so healthy, and I had picked them up. Over time, as I began to feel I wasn't going to be able to merge with my husband, which is the mistake that people make when they're seeking this. And in the Cinderella Complex, she talks about this. Merged at the hip, right? Joint account, name on everything. You are the support. His name is first on everything. That makes you the good wife. But you start to feel, okay, so why am I working and contributing to the household expenses, but I'm a second-class citizen? It is a real challenge. No kidding, it's a real challenge. But understanding that if you're not seeking to really be the doting wife, if you are, that's your red flag. So I was seeking to be a source of support for my husband so that he could tap into his potential, take advantage of the opportunities here in this country, and have a better life. But he wasn't ambitious. And he didn't really grab hold of the opportunities. He was discriminated against, but he did the bare minimum. How do I know that? There's many immigrants that come to this country, and they're real go-getters. They're ambitious, and they make, money, and they start businesses, and they save money, and they build a house, and Yeah. The codependent personality doesn't do that because they can't. They want to depend upon the other person, right? They could be depending upon the wife, or the wife is using the financially secure husband as their crutch for their own codependency and not really wanting to have to go out into the world, and try to have a career. That's not easy either, okay? Men don't want to work with women. They don't want to do business with women. They want to sleep with women. So there are some realities that we have to face, and we have to navigate this and figure out what we can do. It's a challenge. And if you can come up with a product or a business and you can do it online and you can meet mostly with women, or, when you meet with men, it's strictly business in a professional setting, and there's no, ongoing, if it doesn't remain professional, I mean, it can get really scary fast if you allow your guard to come down and you're in a situation with someone who wants to cross your boundaries because you're a female. I had a temporary job one time. One of the many times that I was working temporary jobs before I went to college again. And I remember hearing this conversation of one of the men who was in his office talking about making a bid on some kind of a thing going on with another company. And a woman who called, I don't know how I got privy to this conversation. I don't know what happened. But whatever button I'd pushed, I heard this woman saying, I just don't want to do this anymore. I don't want it to affect our work relationship, but I am not comfortable doing this anymore. You're married, I'm engaged, and I can't do this to my fiance. So she took a risk. She took a risk now in losing business with that man because she had slept with him, unfortunately, to try to further her career. I remember the wife coming in with the two kids, and I thought, oh my God, I know what's going on. So, yeah, it's prevalent, and it's a very, very muddy area. But in Colette Downing's book, she was a writer. She was a freelance writer, and she got to a point where she decided she just wanted to be codependent, and she just wanted to rely on her husband to make the money, right? And yes, when you're a homemaker and a caregiver to a child, that's a full-time job. But you could still figure out something to do part-time, an hour a day, a few hours every other day, right? And she started dressing in sexy nightgowns to try to seduce him, and he'd be like, what are you doing? And it's not that he didn't love her and he didn't want the attention. That's not what I felt from the way she was writing about it. But she said, well, I'm trying to bring some spice into our life. And he said, but you're not working. Why are you not trying to write articles and submit them to magazines? Why are you not working? I feel like you're avoiding. It's an avoidance tactic. So he'd call her out on her crap, right? He'd say, you have a mind, you have a productive... He said, that's why I fell in love with you. One of the reasons why I fell in love with you was because you were a productive, you were intellectual and you were writing about things and you were working part-time as a freelance writer and making some money. He said, I cannot, and he couldn't, afford to take care of her and the house and everything else by himself. He didn't make enough money. Some women throw in the towel and they go and they look for somebody else who makes more money. but they were doing all right. So then she went back to sitting down finally after, I don't know, about a month or two, and typing and writing again and submitting articles to magazines. So a man who admires and loves his wife for being productive and intelligent and producing something, right? Being a productive member of society and not just his slave and his baby machine to create a family. I really was impressed by that. I thought that was an admirable trait for that man to have. My father was the same way with me. He wanted me to get out and do what I could for intellect. He said he didn't really want me to become a, he said he didn't want me to become a wife to some man. He didn't. He didn't want me to become a dependent wife. That touched me deeply. Now, I didn't really want to become a dependent wife anyway. And as I said, my mother had encouraged me to go out and do things that she didn't feel she could do, other than be it a Girl Friday or a secretary. She did have a part-time, one time she worked a little bit at a spa, and she did like that. But I don't know, I honestly don't know what happened after that. My mom was severely codependent. She had a childhood trauma, and it was difficult for her to hold down a job. So I admire my parents for that. And, every time I tried to think about getting with the guy who just made a bunch of money, I would freak out because I thought, where does that leave me? If he cheats on me and I have to divorce him, because I will, if I'm cooking and cleaning and I'm good in bed and he cheats on me, well, then I have to divorce him, and then what's going to happen? Well, I might not get much, and there goes my time and my energy. So I was very wary about men who were claiming to take care of me, or had a lot of money, a lot more money than me. I didn't want to be put in a subservient position. And I think that that's a good trait to have. Every woman should think about that. This is what the Cinderella Complex is about. I highly suggest that you read it because she actually has seen inner parts of herself that exist within all of us. One of them is the twins. I don't know if I've talked about it. I've had dreams about my inner parts as well as seeing my mother in her 3 parts that she plays during the day. We all play different parts. We all wear different hats. And we need to learn to coexist as individuals who have our own ideas and our own interests and our own hobbies, seek to understand one another. And if we're willing to continue working on each other and looking to each other as a mirror and growing, then if it's not too bad, right? If you haven't discovered that this person is truly a narcissist and they don't want to seek help, then you have to have the courage to walk away and make sure that you have your self-respect intact and keep taking care of yourself as best you can. And I'm telling you, I struggled for many, many years, waiting and waiting and waiting. So I guess that's all I have to say for today, is that don't seek to find the love of your life and fall deeply in love. It's a fantasy that doesn't really exist because it takes time to get to know someone. The friends that they hang out with, their hobbies, their interests, how do they spend their spare time? Do they want to spend it with you? Do they care about your interests? Or do they just want you to stay home and be the homemaker while, they do their own thing? And these are things that you need to really take the time to get to know, because everybody's pretty much on their best behavior for the first 5 to 6 months. All right, that's it for now. Take care. I'll see you soon.